Hello and welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. I'm Captain Rick Riles. Hey, listen, sit back because we're going to have a great time. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to make a fantasy trip over to Costa Rica real quick, check in with our buddy Craig Sutton. Rumor has it they caught a grander blue marlin there recently. Gosh, that's a 4-hour plane ride from here and cheap fishing. You might ought to plan your dream vacation there. Then we're going to come back to Florida and make a trip all the way around the state. We'll check in with the 12 hot spots around the state and talk to the premier guides in their area to see who's catching what. All of our action spotters are brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. By Fishing Nosara and Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. And by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat, spay, and offshore hybrid boats? You want to check out youngboats.com. Let's get started with our trip through paradise by heading over to Costa Rica and checking in with Craig Sutton from Nosara. How we doing, Craigie?
I'm good, Captain Ricky.
Good deal. You got a big opening September 1st, right?
Yep. That's the word we're getting right now, and I sure hope so.
Well, then better days are ahead of us, and hopefully the worst of it's behind us.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody that would say that we're not on the other side of this thing, no matter where you're at.
Yep, and Craigie, we never will get an official weight on that fish, will we?
Yeah, that's right.
That's the beauty of letting them. That's the beauty of letting them go. You can always say, you know, how he was this big.
Yeah.
You've seen pictures of Bill Wilderotter's fish that we caught over in the Bahamas, and whenever anybody asks me how big she was, I tell them it's the biggest one we ever saw. That's how big she was. You know, we don't know.
That's right.
Hey, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Okay. I've fished with you before, and if I'm right, your favorite artificial lure, and this will take people by surprise, is the old 3.5 drone spoon. Is that right?
Yes, but now it's got to be the gator spoon.
The gator spoon, not the drone.
Not the drone. The action of the swimming action of the gator is a cripple minnow style action, where the drone is a spin spoon. And I don't think the fish hit it readily if they do that cripple minnow style.
I'll be darned. Huh. All
and
right.
20 years ago, I did some tests with the Spanish, with the Clark and the drones against that gator spoon.
Right.
And there's no question on the days that I was comparing them that the drone spoon was not performing near as good. That swimming action of that spoon, I think, what triggers the fish.
Isn't that something? I'll be darned. All this time I thought you were pulling drone spoons. What other secrets do you have that you haven't told me about yet?
Got to save those for another day.
There's got to be a reason why you always catch more fish than I do.
Well, I don't know about that, Ricky. I don't know about that. I appreciate you saying that, but I don't know if that's true. I think you spanked me several times last winter.
Well, I might have kept a little note each time you caught a fish. I might have put a pencil mark on my console, and I might have said, "We can't go home yet, boys." That could or could not have happened. All right, so you're saying the gator spoon because of the action. Is there a color, or are you pulling straight silver?
I just pull straight silver.
I got you.
Straight silver. Never noticed anything different in the colors. And I tried them. Now, I rig mine with mono all the way to the spoon.
Huh.
And I just tie it right straight to it. Every once in a while, I'll lose a spoon, but it's rare.
You're like me. Give me the most bites I can get, and I'll sort them out. If I lose a fish, I pull all mono leaders, and I get bit off. And okay, you know, we know there's fish around here. I just prefer give me the maximum number of bites, and I'm convinced we get the maximum number of bites with mono. Now, how long a leader do you pull ahead of that spoon?
I do. I break the lead from the planer to the spoon up in thirds. 2/3 is the first line that goes from the planer to a barrel swivel, and a real good barrel swivel.
Ball bearing.
I use maybe 150, sometimes 200. And I make it about 25 feet. And then I put my last third, I downsize it, usually 100, 125, sometimes 80 pounds, tied right straight to the spoon.
Gotcha. Okay, that's a great tip. All right, well, next time we talk, you'll be very, very close to reopen. In fact, you'll be right there next week, won't you?
Yeah. We're getting excited. We're ready for it, brother. Oh, Alex WhatsApps me about every night because I need to go back to sea.
I know he does. I know he does. When is your first trip down? Do you know?
As soon as they open up, I'll be there, 4 or 5 days after that.
Gotcha. All right, Craigie, thank you. Now tell people how they can get a hold of you.
FishingNosara.com, or they can get me at 904-591-2161.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you, buddy. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Now let's start our trip around Florida. We're going to start up in the Northeast section with our good friend, Captain David Voorhees, who I know has been on the water lately. Captain David, are you with us?
Hey, Captain, how you doing?
I'm doing excellent, buddy. I'm doing excellent. How's everything in the back country in Northeast Florida?
Well, I tell you what, it's been a week of just a hodgepodge of fish. We've been catching so many different varieties of fish. It's unbelievable.
David, has it been a plethora of fish? That's what I want to know. I want to know about a plethora.
It has been just a mixed bag, but it's been a good mixed bag. You'll catch snapper, sheephead, black drum, redfish, trout, just a little bit of everything, and not a whole lot of one thing. So, you got to work, and you find a fish here, a fish there. Plenty of snapper, but I haven't gotten a lot of big ones. I got a few big ones this week, but I heard there's some real nice ones in deep water down around the Dames Point Bridge. Some 16, 17 inches is what I've heard.
That's good ones.
Yeah. Still a lot of tarpon around, but the thing this week has been the flounder bite. The flounder bite has actually just been going off all week. We had one day this week where we actually had 10 keeper flounder. I know that doesn't sound like a lot to flounder fishermen, but you got to understand, I'm not targeting flounders. They're just sort of a bycatch for me. I'm targeting redfish, and I'm catching that many flounder in a day. The next day we turned around and we had 5. We only had 4 yesterday, and a lot of these are anywhere from 15, 16, 17 inches. So they're perfect size flounder, and we're seeing a lot of them. I've been using shrimp, 1/4 ounce jig, and I'm working these deep ledges. And a lot of the ledges where I'm catching the flounder are near creek mouths or runouts. And when I say a runout, up here we have these little runouts. Some of them are no wider than 3 to 4 feet wide. You can't even get a boat up in them. But it seems like fish love to hang out at the mouth of these things. And I guess a lot of the bait that's getting flushed out, they're sitting there just feeding on it. I haven't been able to get mud minnows lately. I don't go out and catch my own finger mullet, but it seems like they're really wanting to eat the shrimp. And I think that's what's starting to happen. We're starting to get some movement in the shrimp population. With all this rain we've been getting, it will flush these shrimp out of these creeks. It'll flush them out of the grass and stuff like that. And I think that's what's happening. But I have talked to some of the giggers, and they're seeing record amounts of flounder at night. The flounder bite is in full swing right now in Northeast Florida.
Wow, David, I hate to even say this. I needed some flounder for a friend of mine down here in Stewart, and I fished my dock right there on the north side of the St. Johns River for 4 days with my favorite flounder baits and my favorite flounder tides, and caught 1 flounder. I just don't know. I think it's the dredging in the river, because the water at my house is dirty every single day, and I'm sure that's from the dredging.
That's very possible, Rick. But, one day when you're home, maybe I'll swing by over there, pick you up, because there's a nice little flounder spot right around the corner from your place that I've been hitting. And we've been getting 4 and 5 flounder off of this bank, off of this point. And it has been a flounder-producing spot for me. Several of my big gator trout have come out of this same area this year. And it's a very unusual place. I'd love to show it to you.
Oh, I'd love to see it.
We'll go there. Yeah, it's an interesting place, very interesting place.
Yep, I would love to see it. David, I'm going to tell you a little bit about offshore, and then I got a question for you. Offshore, the kingfish have been really hit or miss. They seem to bite one day, not bite the next. The bait's been tough. There are sardines and cigar minnows offshore, but pogies on the beach have been very difficult. There's a few up north of Nassau Sound. There's a few more up north of the St. Mary's River. Now, once you get out in the deeper water, the best they've seen in a long, long time for mangrove snapper, that they're just continuing to bite. Of course, they usually bite on the full moon in July and August, but they've just kept right on up all the way through the month. There's even been a surprising number of mahi in 120 feet of water. I talked to the commercial boat Sailor Marie on the way home last night, and they had a nice batch of mahi to go along with a very good trip on vermilion snapper and triggerfish. But here's my question. You fish artificials quite a bit, right?
I do, yep.
I want to know what's most important to you when determining which lure to use. Action, color, or scent?
It's definitely action for me.
Action.
Without a doubt. Okay. Whether it's a surface walker that zigzags back and forth, but my number one artificial lure, if I had one to choose from and was stranded on a deserted island, the one I would pick would be just a plain old jig head with a paddle tail grub. And that allows me to cover a lot of different columns, but it gives me that vibration that I really like. I've caught a lot of fish in dirty water, and I've always been a fan of bait that's going to put out a lot of vibration, Rick.
Got it. You are down for a paddle tail grub. You don't care what color, you want that vibration action, right?
That's exactly right.
Bingo. All right. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it, David.
All right. Talk to you next week, Ricky.
All right. Tight lines, buddy. Now let's pull down to East Central and check in with our buddy Jim Ross, who is on the line with every fish in the Mosquito Lagoon. Jimmy, how are you?
Well, I've been better, but I'm getting better, so it's all good. I'm looking forward to getting back out on the water in a couple of weeks and hopefully, picking up right where I left off, catching all the catfish and puffers you can stand.
Us old men take a beating, don't we?
I tell you, well, I can't tell you how many people have told me recently that getting old isn't for sissies, but
no, it's not.
At 52, I don't consider myself old, but man, I remember stuff at 22 and 23 that I don't think I'm doing anymore.
Wait 15 years, brother. Just wait 15 years. That's how many I got on you. Just count on it. Hey, let me tell you what. You talking about catching puffers and catfish? I bought a jar of Gulp the other day. You know how it comes in it's not really a bottle, if you will. It's got 20-something tails in it. Okay.
Yep.
Which you have to take out a loan and make monthly installments to buy.
Oh, yeah.
I bought one of those, the white swimming mullet, the other day. I've got 2 tails left. I've caught 1 flounder.
Wow. What have you gotten into up there? Is it bluefish or
puffers and baby mangoes. And oh my gosh, they bite them like nobody's business.
Take the back end off of them every time. Down here, we've had to shift gears. This tropical storm has been blowing, and nobody's really gotten out offshore here in the last couple of days. Saturday was the last day that anybody got out. And there was a couple of kingfish and a couple of scattered dolphin and things that were caught, but nothing really to speak of. But the guys are turning their sights to inshore, and there's been a lot of people fishing inshore, even though our water quality here recently has kind of gotten really bad with all the algae bloom that we've got in the Indian mosquito and banana rivers all of a sudden. But there are little pockets in places that guys are doing well. And the one thing, I talked with Mark Blythe, and he's a land-based angler. He walks around the wildlife refuge. And one of the things he told me, he says, if you can find flowing water to culvert pipe, because you have found virtually every fish in that section of Oregon right there. He says, just get to that flowing water. He caught 18 snook up to 34 inches on a little speckled perch, little crappie dapper that Bass Assassin makes for their crappie system. It's called a crappie dapper, and he's using a blue back with a silver in it and a black back with a silver in it. He says he's just tearing up the snook at the little spillways and culvert pipes and things. The other thing that's pretty good right now is the guys that are down around Vero up through to just north of Sebastian, around Long Point, Washburn Cove, Ballard Cove, those areas. That area is still pretty clean, And there's an influx of water coming out of the Sebastian River and out of Turkey Creek. That's more of a freshwater type of an influx. And so that section of the river seems to be the last holdout of trout, bluefish, Spanish mackerel, ladyfish, jack, that mixed bag that we typically have during the summertime. So I would suggest, if you live from Titusville south, I would go down to Grant, Valcaria, Sebastian, and fish, or all the way up at the other end. It hasn't been as good up in the Ponce area as it has down in the Sebastian and Vero area, but get close to that inlet once again, and that flowing water, that exchange of water seems to be helping. And lastly, we just opened up here this past week new headwaters of the St. Johns River. It's basically an impoundment that was flooded. And FWC and Corps of Engineers and all those guys got together, and St. John's Water Management District, and kind of built this thing. And it seems like they have almost reinvented the stick marsh over again. For years, the stick marsh was just an epic place to go catch bass. And now all of a sudden, this headwater seems to be the same way. Guys are catching 40, 50, 60 bass in the morning, throwing artificial. They're catching 70 or 80, throwing shiners. It's just a heck of a fishery right now. But that's not the only place. I was talking with Captain Jonathan Wilson, and he's been catching 30 to 50 bass on Lake Toho in the morning. And he's looking for where the seagulls are diving, because the seagulls are diving down on shad, and the schooling bass are busting on the shad. So, we don't typically give a freshwater report. We're a little more saltwater oriented. But, hey, when the wind's blowing and you can't get offshore, places like Toho or the headwaters, there's two places that you can go and still have some fun.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Mark Nichols, DOA Lures, I'm staying at his house, and he and Sam Heaton, somebody else went to that Fellsmere, I believe it's called. And, and I've got pictures both of them with that snake lure that DOA makes that I don't like even getting close to, because after all, it's a snake. But Sam's got a bass that looks to me to be 6 to 7, and Mark's got a picture of one that's every bit of 9. I mean, they're really pulling some quality fish out of that Fellsmere area.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff going on down there. So there's a couple of places where you guys and gals can get out the later part of the week or first part of the weekend and still have a legitimate shot at catching some fish.
All right, real quick before you go, I got a question for you.
Okay.
All right, when you're picking an artificial lure, okay, let's make it a plastic so we're all on the same page. What's more important, the action of it, the color of it, or the scent of it?
Yeah, that's difficult because every scenario calls for something different. Clear water, you want something that's visible. Dirty water, scent takes over. I would have to say overall, I would go with something that has a dull shine to it, because I can impart action into it. And scent isn't always a requirement to create a strike, because a lot of times the fish are striking off of the reaction, not off of the scent.
Very true. So for you, it's color.
I think color.
Gotcha.
Color.
All right. Great answer, Captain Jim Ross. Please tell me we can talk with you next week after this weather settles down.
I'm looking forward to it, Rick.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it, Jim. Jim and all of our action spotters are brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. By Nosara, Paradise Fishing, your dream vacation. And by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils. Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is a mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to his name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with Menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to use second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat Facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Okay, let's pull over in Stuart and find out what's happening in the sailfish capital of the world with Captain John Earhart from Mayhem and Chaos Fishing Charters. John, how you doing?
Doing good. Glad to be here.
Always glad to have you, brother. Tell me how your fishing's been.
The offshore fishing has been really good leading up to the past 2 days. We still had some greenies, filchers, even some goggle eyes around, which has made it ideal for sail fishing. A lot of big kingfish, and all that action's been 60 to about 120 feet of water this week. There's been some bonitas, even a few nice mahis mixed in as well. Looks like the next couple days, probably not going to be able to get out there, but after the storm kind of passes into the Gulf, I would imagine we'd have some good fishing on the back end of this storm.
All right, that sounds fantastic. Anything going on inshore?
Inshore, the snook fishing remains steady. A lot of larger snook are being caught this week. 35 to 45-inch fish have been caught around the St. Lucie Inlet, around the bridges and docks. So if you're looking to catch a big snook, right now is an excellent time to do it, using live croakers or even live large silver mullets right now, because we're starting to see a few of those in the Indian River and the St. Lucie River. The big jack crevalles are around as well, and even some tarpon, 15 to 40-pound fish have been hanging out in the St. Lucie River. Usually you throw hoagie lures at them or slow trolling a live pilchard if the salinity's, good enough for you to have those filters and for them to stay alive. And it's all based on the water quality of the day. So if the water's dirty, I'd fish live mullet. If the water's clean, I'd try and use white baits like filters and greenies.
That's a great report, John. I'm kind of wondering, is this little blow that we're getting off of this storm, this is, I guess, the second day in a row. It's blown pretty hard out of the east. It's supposed to tomorrow. Is that going to start pulling any of the mullet out of the inlet? Are we going to see an early mullet run this year?
I mean, it's definitely possible. I mean, typically when that third or fourth storm comes through, right around the end of August, the first week of September, that's when we really start seeing the masses of the mullet.
Gotcha. That's our next big thing to look forward to. And, John, I got to be honest with you. One of the things that I love best about living in Florida, there's not 1 month out of the year that we don't have something to look forward to, isn't there?
Yeah, it's really a great region because, you always have something new coming into our area that you can look forward to, whether it's sailfish, tarpon, snook, permit, cobia. I mean, there's endless opportunity here, and that's why I'm a fishing guide in Florida.
I love it. Every month of the year, I'm either doing something I really love or I'm counting the days. This time of year right now, I'm counting the days until the mullet run starts. I can wade the surf with my fly rod, and I can make myself happy all day long. Captain John, we appreciate it so much. Please let me know we can talk with you next week.
Yes, sir. I'll talk to you next week.
All right, buddy. Now let's go on down to where it's always happening, down in Miami. Captain Alan Sherman, what's going on?
The wind is blowing like crazy because of these storms that have been going through. A lot of rain at times. And then we had a fish kill in North Biscayne Bay earlier in the week because it was so hot and so still. Parts of the bay had no oxygen in it, and we had a pretty good fish kill. On the upside, the breezes that we're getting from these two tropical systems have, chopped up the water, pushed the water around it quite a bit, and reoxygenated it, and it's looking a whole lot better. Hopefully there's a few fish that survived all of it, and the fishing will turn on in the bay here locally, in the North Bay anyway. But I guess you're looking for a fishing report, right?
Well, I kind of am, Alan, but now that you told me about that fish kill, what species were most impacted by that?
So because there was low oxygen in the water, the fish that got affected by it first were puffer fish and toadfish because they like to hang out close to the bottom. So they got hit first.
Okay.
And then there were other species. There were some spade fish. I heard there was some snook that got killed as well. And then I went down to Marathon for a week, so I kind of lost track of what was happening. But I do know now that things have gotten better. So hopefully, we'll see a rebound of everything, and it won't get worse again.
I'm going to take a very unpopular stance here and probably get myself banned from the radio forever. But I buy gulp to flounder fish with. As far as I'm concerned, a fish kill can come along and take every puffer and every toadfish. I'm sorry, but it just wouldn't bother me that much.
Well, if you fish with soft plastics, definitely the puffers are a real nuisance. They're expensive baits, and they can ruin one on the first cast. Yeah, I get it.
Much more so with your scented plastics. Your fish bites and your gulp are just a magnet for puffers and toads.
I totally agree. So with all that set to the side, the weekend forecast coming up looks great. The winds are supposed to drop down by Thursday, Friday, and during the weekend, they're supposed to be light out of the south-southeast, 5 to 10 knots, which is beautiful. These strong easterly breezes that we have blown in dolphin closer to shore, and before the weather got bad, there were kingfish, bonitas, blackfin tunas, barracudas, and then the mahi-mahi very close to the reef. So hopefully we're going to see that action, come back hard when this weather settles down. I know I'm looking forward to that. So from the reef, 80 feet on out to, say, 400 feet, 500 feet, the fishing should be very good for the species I just mentioned. On the bottom, over the artificial reefs, there's been big amberjacks, some mutton snappers, a few groupers still being caught. And then closer in around the beaches and in the inlets, the snook fishing still is good. Although these fish are starting to move inland now, the snook, and they will continue to do that as the summer passes us. The spawning season ends. They're going to get back into the brackish waters, which a lot of them already have. South Bay had some die-offs as well, but you move further out quite a ways, and the water got much better. And then over the shallow flats and the finger channels of South Bay, the fishing was very good. That fishery should be great this weekend with bonefish and permit on the shallow flats, especially around the Arsenicer Keys and Toten Key, as well as the offshore flats near the islands from Key Biscayne all the way down to Ocean Reef. The finger channels have been very good for an assortment of fish: jack crevalles, blue runners, yellow jacks, porgies, mutton snappers, mangrove snappers, and some groupers. So there's plenty of action in those areas as well. And that kind of sums it up for right now.
That's an outstanding report, Alan. It sounds to me like you guys are really waiting on those storms to pass to take advantage of what should be some really great offshore fishing.
Most definitely. And I imagine you guys are feeling the effects of the storms as well up there in Jacksonville.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, ever since yesterday. Our boats left the dock Saturday. Half of them came back. Yesterday, they all came back. And today, nobody untied. We had one 59-foot Carolina boat untie today and make it about 5 miles and say, nope, this is a bad idea. So, yeah, we're actually getting nasty all the way up here, but that's okay, Cap. Just like you say, it'll lay down before you know it. We're just glad to be out of the path for a change.
Rick, I know that you were asking some of the guys what their favorite lures were, and you brought up the gulps, and you cannot beat a 1/4 ounce, 3/8 ounce hook-up lure jig head, no matter what color it is, tipped with a soft plastic. Whether it be a shrimp or a bait fish tail, those lures catch everything.
Okay, all right. Now, what's the most important that you put on the hookup jig head? Is the action the most important? You want a paddle tail, or what do you want?
So it depends on the time of the year. In the fall and the winter, when shrimp are around, you go with a shrimp tail. In the summertime, when shrimp are really small, you go with a bait fish tail. And I like the paddle tails, but I also like this one that Gulf puts out. It's called a swimming mullet. A good buddy of mine, Jim Hobalis, he put me onto them, and they work. You know, they're about a 3-inch bait. You can get them as big as 5 inches, and you just kind of work them back just to keep that tail fluttering in the current or on the retrieve. And during the summer times, it's a dynamite lure for snook and redfish, trout. You know, you take it offshore, the dolphin will eat the heck out of it.
So do you think the scent of the gulp is more important or the action of the swimming tail?
In the shrimp, definitely the scent is
Gotcha.
a big bonus.
Okay.
Because you can let that bait with a jig head lay on the bottom with no movement and something will eat it.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
Mm-hmm.
But without a scent, you need to keep that moving. You know, if you're using a shrimp tail, you want to bounce that up and down just like a shrimp would be when he gets spooked out of the bottom by a predator. You know, that shrimp's first reaction is to go up into the water column because he's spooked. And that's when the fish nails him. If you're using a bait fish tail, you just got to keep that bait fish tail moving. As long as it's fluttering, whether it be, you know, a long skinny tail or a paddle tail with vibrations, send it off. You just got to keep that bait moving and you will get struck.
Great advice, Alan. Thanks so much. Please tell me we can talk with you again next week.
Look forward to it.
Thanks,
sure.
Alan. Now, let's pull on down to my favorite place in Florida. You know where it is. That's Islamorada. Oh, my goodness. It never stops being fishing season down there, and we're going to check in with one of the legendary captains of the Keys. It is so much fun for me to talk with Nick Stanczyk every week. Nick, how are you?
I'm doing good, Rick. How are you?
Good. I'm going to tell you something, Cap. I think you borrowed somebody else's dolphin. That dolphin you put on Facebook, that fish looks over 50 pounds to me. How big was he?
Well, you know, that was a really good picture of him. And I call it an internet 50, but in reality it was 35.6 pounds.
Golly.
So second biggest one of the season for me. And I had a lot of messages of people saying, you know, how big is that thing, 50 to 55 pounds? I agree. I looked at it, but as a nice fish, 35.6.
It's a great fish. It is a great fish. Most people would never understand that chances are that fish is only a 2-year-old. They grow so incredibly fast. They've never documented a 5-year-old. Has your mahi fishing been good?
It has been good, yeah. A lot of boats been catching 20 to 40 fish per trip. And there's been a few nice bowls mixed in, but a lot of nice schoolies and some gaffers, you know, with mid-size 6 15-pounders, I would say. So there's been plenty of schoolies, a few gaffers, and a few big bowls. So.
Man, that's outstanding. Tell me about swordfish. You still on a streak?
We do have a little streak going. We caught them 3 times this past week. So I guess that gives us maybe a few trips in a row now.
I think that gives you 7. I think that gives you 7, doesn't it?
Yep.
So. That's outstanding.
So. And we caught one each trip. Nothing big, nothing maybe over 60 pounds. So some smaller fish. We missed a few that I think were smaller. We did some deep dropping too. We had some barrel fish. We had a wreck fish one day, just under 59 pounds. I had a Ken Gleason out for his 80th birthday. He's fished with us the last 8 years in a row. And he's never missed when it comes to swordfish. 80 years old up there. And of course, we just use the electric, but we got a swordfish. We had one bite. He caught that, luckily. Then we got a handful of barrel fish, a big wreck fish. And the last trip I fished, we got that nice big bull. We had another gaff for them, a handful of schoolies, as well as one swordfish that day. And then the day before that, we had one sword, missed a couple, and had a few bottom fish as well. Some rosies and a big alfonsino.
Those are fine trips. There's nothing wrong with that at all. That's a fine trip. Nick, are we doing a good enough job with the swordfish? Are we putting too much pressure on them? Would you reduce the limits more? Are you happy with them where they are?
Obviously, no, I don't think any of us really know the exact answer. You know, it's a fish that's commercially fished around the world, and I understand it looks like we catch and kill tons of them on social media, but you got to think when we catching, you know, a month is what a commercial boat catching half a night, you know, if we caught 10 or 15 fish a month, you know, there's some of these boats, you know, get hundreds and hundreds of them in a trip, you know, in a week-long trip or whatever. But there's been boats, you know, if it's overseas years ago, it'd catch thousands of them in a single trip. So I don't know if we dent the population that much. I believe personally that there's maybe a resident population, and then, you know, you get these migratory pushes, which maybe the resident fish up and down the coast of South Florida have been, you know, thinned out a little bit, but then I think that, you know, you get this big push of fish in, and if there's bait to hold them and stick around for a while, then you keep catching them, and if they move on, you know, they kind of move on. It wouldn't bother me if they raise the minimum size up a little bit.
Well, you're right. It is so hard for us to enact management that we know works when you're talking about fish across the ocean, because as soon as they leave our EEZ, they're fair game for anybody. So you don't want to keep the North American fishermen from fishing just so the other countries can take them all. It's a more complicated issue than most people think. Nick, we always appreciate it. Can we look forward to talking with you next week?
Yep, give me a call next week, and hopefully we'll be here.
We sure will. Thanks, Cap. Let's swing on around out of the Keys and make a stop in 10,000 Islands to check in with Captain Steve Dahl. Steve, how are you?
I'm fantabulous.
Steve, I will have you know I have now caught toadfish more than 7 days in a row. I am on a streak.
Well, I'm on a streak too. Things have been good down by me. We're on a juvenile tarpon bite that's just been unbelievable, and I think a lot of it's got to do with what's going out in the Gulf of Mexico right now. I think it's just got them fired up. The barometer's just been moving, and we're catching them really good. We usually get this, August, September, and it's not bad. About 5-6 days now. It's been really, really hot. Multiple fish, lots of active rolling fish, and I'm sharing an area with another captain. We had this talk this afternoon. Let's just go in there. Yeah. And we're so tempted to bring live bait because we think we could probably catch a dozen of them, in a day. And we won't do it because we don't want to spoil it, because they're readily eating artificials, and we're catching 3 or 4, jumping 6 probably, and every time we're in there, a piece. And we think if we go into with live bait, we're going to ruin it.
Steve, it's so funny you say that. That brings back so many memories to me. When I was in the charter business, we all had a spot tucked away somewhere where you went when everything went to hell. You know what I mean? When nothing,
you got it. We all got it.
Yep. When nothing was going right, you'd go there, and it's the only time you'd go there because you had to have it pay off. So I always had this set of culverts that was off all by itself somewhere. And if nothing else, I could bring the amberjack to the top of the water at those culverts. I'll never forget it.
There you go. That's been going really good, and we're getting a nice mix of schooled up black drum, which is really a lot of fun. And
Are they common in your area?
They are. They're a lot more common than a lot of people think. And they bunch up in decent sized schools in the wintertime on the low tides. They're way more easier to find. But now that we kind of have these, late summer tides and a little bit dingier water from the runoff from the rain, you can't see them schooling as much. But if you have an idea of where they're at, you can readily catch them, and they're super easy to catch. And you can do it in a host of different ways. We have shallow water ones. We also have some deeper water ones, too, in some current-rich areas, like some area passes like New Pass. Up to the north of us is a well-known place. But Dismal Key Pass down in 10,000 Islands is a hot spot for those, pretty much year-round. It's bottom fishing, so pretty simple stuff. But we're kind of known more for the shallow water stuff around the oyster bars. Fish are running big right now, which is even more odd. We're seeing fish over 10 pounds. They're overslot fish, but they're a fun fish to catch. They're not pretty, but they're fun to catch.
And they're fun to eat too.
Oh, they are. I think you and I have had this talk. Probably one of the more underrated fish we have for table fare for sure. You give me a 17, 18-inch black drum, that's just as good, if not better, than a redfish. That's for sure.
You bet, Steve. And I'm going to give you the same advice I gave you on redfish on them. Don't skin him. Put him on the grill, skin side down on a piece of aluminum foil. Oh, my goodness. It keeps him so moist and he tastes so good.
Put him on the half shell.
That's right. That's exactly right. No doubt. Your boat's been offshore at all?
We haven't, actually, with everything going on. Probably the last 5-6 days, my contacts really haven't just because of what's going on. It blew about 25 today with everything going on and tomorrow we're probably going to get about the same. So I don't think we're going to see much of the offshore bite or action probably till later in the week here. But that's usually really good after a real hard blow like that. So we should probably have some real good reports for next week. But so the inshore side is doing well, for sure.
Good deal. Outstanding. Cap, we appreciate it as always. And please tell me we can talk with you next week.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Hey, we hope you enjoy Steve's report. We hope you enjoy all the reports. If you do us a favor and subscribe to our podcast and take it to your buddy who's not catching any fish. Tell him to tune in, see if we can help him get in on the action too. We certainly enjoy bringing it to you, and we hope you enjoy it as well. Now, we're going to take a stop over in Southwest Florida and check in with Snook Stamp Charters, our buddy Greg Stamper. How we doing, Cap?
Doing very good, Rick. How are you today?
Outstanding, buddy. Outstanding. How's your fishing been?
Fishing's been good. We've had a couple of storms here and there. A couple of days that were really nice where it laid down, and a couple of days that were just okay. But the guys that did get offshore, and there was a couple of days they could do it, did very well when they got there out 120, 130 plus. I did see some nice snowies come in this week. A lot of mutton snapper, a lot of mangrove snapper that were upper size, 4 or 5 pounds. Quite honestly, the guys who kind of didn't go that far really made a mistake because they didn't do that well.
Mm-hmm. All right, so it took long runs to get offshore fish for you guys this week, huh?
Yeah, I'd say anybody that was doing anything from 130 plus did well, but the guys who were in closer didn't do so much unless they were fishing at night. Now, I have a question for you, Rick. How do you tell a customer that comes off another boat that a jolt head porgy tastes like, like sour? How do you do that?
I don't know. I think I'd probably let him find it out for himself.
I just trying to get it fixed. So the nearshore guys are doing really good as far as the permit goes. They're out there a little bit deeper. They've been doing very well on the smaller snappers. Believe it or not, a couple of sheephead came in this week. And then we moved inside to the back bays and the shallower waters.
Uh-huh.
We had a really good time this week with tarpon. We went 12 for 30, which isn't that bad.
No, that's not bad at
we
all.
had a couple. Yeah, it's not bad. We had a couple days where we lost a lot, and we had a couple days where we caught them all. So kind of just worked itself out. The good part is we've caught a lot of nice redfish this week. I'm still seeing all these bigger fish. I'm seeing fish that are in the upper slot and slightly over, and I'm still not seeing a ton of those small ones. So I know October's coming down the line, so maybe they just haven't gotten around to being in the back bays yet. But it's kind of weird because normally that's what we would be catching, when it's hot out in the heat of the day. And other than that, it's just been all about snook fishing anywhere on the islands that are close to all of our passes. And if you can do that, you're going to probably catch them.
I'll be darned. That's not a bad deal at all. Now, will this storm shake it up for you? Will you see a lot of changes after this week, you think?
So today, I was trying to get out there and get that pressure drop.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly believe we have some wind. It really started picking up around noon, but it didn't come close enough to really affect it. So with that said, I'm going to say it's probably not going to mess too much up other than what the wind does to the water and making it cloudy and stirring some stuff up there.
Mm-hmm.
But I got a feeling, Rick, it's just going to be a day or two, and we'll be right back to our normal pattern. Today I was a little bit disappointed with the way the storm didn't turn those fish on. But, it's fishing. And that thing is like 250, 300 miles from us. It's just a little too far. I think if I would have gotten lucky and it was a little closer, I don't mind wind, especially while the water is still clean. It would have been better. But it's all good. I'm not going to complain about a hurricane missing me.
No. We can't complain about that. But I got to tell you, in my much younger days when I was full of vinegar, there was a storm coming up the coast of Florida, and I decided I could squeak in one more day. And what we used to do, Greg, was we'd buy garbage cans full of shrimp boat chum off a shrimp boat. And okay. I got my garbage can full of chum, and in case you don't think, I wholeheartedly believe in a creator, and I believe that he uses, I believe he notifies his animals when things are changing and when things are coming. Whether he does it through a barometric drop or not, I don't know. But I do know this. I do know that that's the only day to this day that I have had seagulls land on my chum bucket in the boat and fight me to pick fish out of the chum bucket. They were like, I am eating because after tomorrow we ain't going to eat for a while. And sure enough, we had one coming up the coast. So, yes, fish and birds. The fish just absolutely went insane that day, by the way. But you're right. If you can catch that barometer drop before a storm comes, it's dangerous, but it's exciting.
The best bonefish day of my life was when I lived in Miami, and it was the day before Hurricane Andrew.
Mm-hmm. I don't doubt it a bit. Cap, we appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can talk with you next week.
Absolutely, Rick. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Greg. Our thanks to Captain Greg Stamper for a Southwest Florida report where he says things are good. You stop laughing at me, Ray Markham. Now we're going to come on up the coast and talk to our buddy in the West Central area, my old friend Ray Markham. How we doing, Raymond?
Hanging in there, bud. We're just dodging thunderstorms, and that's about the size of most of what's been going on lately.
You're not supposed to laugh at the host now. That's not nice.
I'm laughing with you. Come on, you laugh.
Tell me about your fishing, Raymond.
Well, I'll tell you something. The barometer absolutely has it. The needle about to fall off here lately with all the thunderstorms that are coming and going around this area. We haven't had a single day that we haven't had thunderstorms coming. And it's been really difficult to judge whether they're going to be in the morning, going to be at noon, or going to be in the afternoon or evening. So planning a trip's been really tough. There's been several days we've gotten out and hadn't spent too much time out there and had to go back in. Today was kind of one of those days, but we did manage to get in some good trout fishing, seen some nice fish turning on just before the storm was getting ready to make its way north with us. But we fished a combination of different kinds of lures. The topwater bite right before the storm hit was off the charts. Mirror top dog with big rattle in it, making lots of noise and stirring up stuff. It was like calling the dinner bell there. Otherwise, we've been fishing mostly jigs. With the water temperature up, it's down somewhat with the rain, but it's been up in the 90s, back down in the upper 80s now at mid-afternoon. But other than that, the guys fishing the Loop tournament this past weekend had a real rough go of it. Some of these guys were fishing 150 miles out.
Whew.
But it's probably the least productive Loop tournament, at least that I can recall, and I've been a member since '86 with the Old Salt. They did manage to pull in a huge swordfish. Well, but huge for this area is almost 290 some odd pounds.
That's huge,
so,
period, Cap.
Absolutely. It was serious fish. They did get, I think, one blue marlin. They got quite a few blackfin tuna. They got, I think, the biggest wahoo weighed was in the neighborhood of around 40 pounds. So nothing spectacular there, but my understanding is that they probably had more chummers than usual this time. So
that would make sense.
But,
It's tough to handle blue water fishing when it's really rough. You're just not as effective. I can feel those guys' pain. But your trout fishing's been good. How the redfish?
Redfish guys are just really tearing up the big redfish. And they've been in a number of different locations, not only in the backcountry and inside Tampa Bay. They're catching them on the barrier islands. They're even catching them out around Egmont Key, which that's not unusual. A lot of the big breeder-sized fish will come in schools, and they'll hang somewhere in the neighborhood of the ditch out there, the 90-foot pole that runs right in front of Egmont Shipping Channel. And they'll go around the backside of the island, and they'll cruise around there. There's a lot of rock piles and things from the old gun mounts and all out on the west side. There's still guys that are doing real well with redfish there and actually some big trout. A lot of those big trout will hang out there this time of year when it's really hot out. They can just sneak down in that deep water and get as cool as they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
There's typically at least one or more thermoclines in there that water temperature will drop at least 10 degrees cooler than the surrounding temperature above and below. So pretty good deal. I can't complain. I mean, it's summertime fishing, so it is what it is. The dog days are here.
Ray, I'm going to sweat every one of the next 30 days. This 90-degree water scares me, and I'll be glad when it's gone and we start getting a little cooler and we don't have to watch the big storm forecast every morning.
Totally agree. I mean, every time I see something brewing in the tropics and it looks like it's kind of heading towards the Gulf, it always gets me a little nervous. Makes me want to go out and buy a backup generator.
Me and you both.
I mean, a backup for my generator. You know what I mean?
You know, I'm glad you said that. I need to go out and crank my generator here one of these days real soon. Thank you, Ray. As always, we appreciate it.
Man. All right, we'll catch you later, Rick.
Thank you, Raymond. Now, let's start on up into the Big Bend and check in with the mayor of Homosassa, Florida, William Toney. William, how are you?
Doing good. A little wet behind the ears this afternoon, but had a beautiful morning right now. I mean, it was absolutely nice and cool, a little breezy. Trout bite was fantastic.
Good.
Good redfish bite this morning, despite the storm, but it looks like it's going downhill pretty quick this evening.
Yeah, you're getting into the area. Now, you guys aren't expecting any heavy weather, are you?
A lot of times when our storms move into the Gulf, they kind of bypass us,
Right.
and they usually go up towards St. Mark's or west, Pensacola, Louisiana, all that area. But not to say it hasn't happened. Well, our last big one was Hermine, and we did get a lot of flooding. That's our biggest concern here. But, when you get one that goes right up the center of the Gulf, like right now, it's crazy. You get an east wind, which generally blows the water out, but then when you get a storm, it kind of pushes the water in with an east wind, so it's kind of a little crazy, and that static barometer makes this fish bite.
Yeah, there's no doubt they bite before a storm like that. Looks to me like you'll have all new water when this goes through. Is that right?
Yeah, I think we'll probably get a little bit of storm surge, but nothing major we haven't experienced before. And, it's expected this time of year. We're just about near the end of August, and we get through September. Generally, we're okay. But, we're looking towards some really good red fishing here on the Big Bend, and a lot of different captains up and down. Danny Allen and Jimbo Keith and all those guys in Cedar Key have been posting some really good pictures of some overslot reds in a 30-inch range. And just talked to a gentleman today up towards Steenahatchee, said the trout bite up that way was very, very, very good.
Good.
It's just dodging those rainstorms and everything. It's early in the week, kind of like a stalled front. So we had a reverse pattern of rain in the morning and then dry in the afternoon. But it looks like once we get through this about Wednesday for the rest of the week, it looks like it's going to be really good conditions with these kind of morning high tides, which is great.
Good deal. Now, you said you're trout fishing. How was your trout fishing today? It was good?
Oh, excellent. We had an east wind with high water, so the drift was great, blowing right out toward the deeper water. The kelp patches I've been corrected before. I'm sorry, it's not kelp. Technically, it's sargassum grass.
Right,
and
sargassum.
Locally, we call it kelp here because, we're just, we call it what it looks like, but it's sargassum. But on hard bottom, when you find patches of that anywhere here on the Big Bend, with good moving water, you can pretty much bet on you're going to find some good sea trout bite. And a lot of times it can be, on lower the water is, a little bit harder to fish it because you get hung in it. But you can rig up a weedless DOA jerkbait. The 5.5 inch is one of my favorites. Or, you can get through it with a jig and a cork and just look for the open patches. And a lot of times right on the fringe edges of where those kelp patches are where your trout are going to be laying, and it provides good cover because one thing on low water that trout are susceptible to is ospreys like to pick them off.
Mm-hmm.
So they hide under it, and plus it's good cover for a lot of bait fish that trout eat.
I see. That's outstanding. Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. I wonder how big a trout has to get before he's not scared of ospreys anymore.
I don't know. I've had some, 17, 18-inch fish that had scars where they nearly escaped, and only to be caught by us in the boat. So, he was just having a bad day. But, yeah, I think probably when you get to about the 3-pound range or something, might be a little hard for one to take off and pull them out of the water. But I've seen them snatching big mullet and things out of the water. So that, I think they're just going to always have that bug in their head about something getting them from the top, and then, of course, porpoises getting them. So they're going to be wary, and the bigger they get, the more wary they are, so it makes them more of a trophy fish once they get to that range.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I saw an osprey dive one day. In fact, Carl Wickstrom, the founder of our magazine, was with me, and I saw an osprey dive and just stop like he was stuck. And he had sunk his talons into a flounder, William, and he couldn't pick it up. And it couldn't swim away, and he couldn't pick it up. And it doesn't sound like a long time, but I want you to believe that battle went on for 5 minutes.
I bet it did. If you're hungry, you want
it. Yep. And it was intense. He wouldn't let go, and that flounder didn't want to come up. And I'll be darned if eventually the osprey didn't win.
Yep. And if you want to survive, you keep kicking. So
Yep. You're exactly right. Cap, I appreciate it so much. I'm hoping by the end of the week your boats will be back offshore. I think they will.
Right now, it's just a little tough on it. There's some good mangrove snapper fishing starting in about 8 or 10 foot, but I'm sure we get these rain-cooled waters, that grouper bite's going to kick off.
I don't doubt it a bit. Cap, as always, we appreciate it. Be careful driving that Tremblay around. We hope you keep catching them.
All right, bud.
We'll talk with you next week. Now let's pull over into the Northwest and start checking in with our buddy, Captain Kevin Lanier from KC Sport Fishing. Kevin, well, I've been looking for my mahi. What's this I hear about you got them?
Well, you know, we've been stealing your red snapper, so I just thought that Dad steal a couple of your mahi.
Jeez. You got legal-sized mahi over there?
We got what would be considered a nice-sized mahi on your side of the fence.
That's a good one now. How big?
Yep. They were probably around 38 inches, 36 to 38 inches.
Oh, that's pretty fish. That's really pretty fish for your side. I'll be darned.
Oh, I know. We've gone 30 miles offshore, not caught mahi that big.
Sure.
So I was real tickled to do it in the buoy line.
I'll be darned. I'll be darned. Were you trolling, or did you just spot them, or what was the deal?
Well, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, how fate just kind of lays it out in front of us. We were trolling for kings on the buoy line because we were getting some swell from the early, parts of the storms that are coming in. So we were trolling along. We got a peanut dolphin, and I said, well, that's neat to see him in here. And we kept going, and just a few minutes later, one of our duster rigs goes off, and it just starts screaming. And I look out back, and there he comes out of the water, and I said, oh, my goodness. I said, that is way too big for mahi to be in this close. And I told one of the ladies that was with us standing next to me, I said, reel in that long line. She made about 3 turns on the reel, and it hammers down.
Mm-hmm.
So I got 2 of them on at one time. They're bigger than anything we get in close here. And we wound up getting a bull and a cow.
How about that? That's outstanding. That is outstanding.
It's one of those situations. I'm happy to be lucky than I was good.
Yep. Always better to be lucky than good. Yep.
That's true. I
was running like 5 miles off Jacksonville, which is way too far in for a big mahi. And I saw a sickle tail going through the water, and I was up in the tower, and I yelled sailfish. I said, get a bait ready. And so the guys find the tail and they get a bait ready. Everybody's waiting to see this sailfish jump. And we threw a greenie out there, and he pounced on it and stuck him. And it was a 24-pound mahi. He was 5 miles off of Jacksonville. That wouldn't happen again in a million years.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've caught mahi on the buoy line here in St. Joe Bay and things like that. But to get a pair of mahi that size, I mean, it's a real treat for us. That's for sure.
Your people had to be happy. Tell me what else you've been catching.
Well, we've still been getting some kings. Kings slowed down a little bit. Vermilions are still, if you can get to them, you can catch them. In fact, we were out the day before we got those mahi. We got pushed in for lightning, but we had probably a dozen to 15 vermilions and 2 drifts, 18 miles offshore.
That's
so
fine.
They weren't the big ones we've been catching, but they're good legal size ones.
Mm-hmm. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Your fishing's good. When do you think you'll be able to get back in the ocean?
Right now, the earliest I'm guessing will be Friday, based on what I'm seeing. And, of course, that could vary a day or two, but it looks like by the next weekend, Saturday is probably going to get down to where it's manageable. Not going to be smooth, but going to be manageable.
Cap, I don't know about you, but I'll be glad for the next 30 days to pass. This hot water scares me, and we got another month at least of this silliness, and I'll be glad to see this season come to an end.
Well, it always happens, and I marked 90-degree water last time I was out.
Mm-hmm.
And here in Mexico Beach, we're a little bit gun-shy with that kind of water temperature.
Yep, you should be. You've earned it. There's no doubt.
Yep.
All right, well, I'm going to look forward to talking with you next week, and we're going to have a good report about a calm ocean by then.
That would be wonderful, because I'd like to finish out through Labor Day with some good, because we got a lot of trips scheduled coming up on Labor Day weekend. So I'd like to finish that out really hot and successful.
Let's do it. Thank you, Cap. I appreciate it.
All right. As always, great talking to you.
Now, we can't leave Florida till we go out the Panhandle. We got to check in and see what's going on in an area that's a little too close to the hurricane right now. How we doing, Captain Tyler?
Oh, we're doing good over here, Rick.
You guys been studying that map pretty hard, haven't you?
Yeah, we were looking at it. At one point we were in the cone, but it looks like we're in the clear for now, hopefully.
Good.
We're getting a lot of rain off this Marco storm, and we got this other one coming up. We'll probably get some rain and a little wind off of it and some swell out here in the Gulf, but I don't think we're in any impact zone.
Hold on. I just had a really scary thought. What's the second storm's name?
Laura.
Tyler, I got an ex-wife named Laura, brother. You better hide.
Oh,
all I'm saying is you better go find someplace safe, brother.
Maybe y'all come over to Jacksonville.
A mad Laura is a bad thing, brother. I'm telling you that. Tell me how your fishing's been.
Fishing's still been good. We're getting into our fall type fishing, which is a little better than our, middle of summer heat. Offshore, we've still been doing some bottom fishing. The scamp grouper bite has been really good. We had good days of it, doing that and amberjack fishing in the last week. With some vermilion snapper added in, Almaco jack. Stuff's just starting to bite pretty good out there in the deeper water. So that's been, on 8-hour trips and longer. That's what we've been going after those things.
Gotcha. All right. What's been going on closer to home?
The inshore guys, fishing's still been good. We're picking up a few flounder here and there. Spanish mackerel are biting well. Starting to catch a few more redfish around the bay and in Santa Rosa Sound. Mangrove snappers, heavily targeted fish. So that's just what we've been doing for the last, few trips that the guys had before the weather came in. And, hopefully we'll be able to get back to it. Maybe in another 3 or 4 days we'll be fishing again. Hopefully, just to see what this weather does to us.
It's all part of the process, and I think you will. And I think from now on, our fishing just gets progressively better after each big weather event. Hey, let me ask you a question, Tyler.
Yep.
Your favorite artificial lure, what's most important? The action, the color, or the scent?
So I think I'm a scent guy.
Me and thee.
I use pretty much the number one artificial that I use is a Berkeley Gulp.
Yep.
And we don't do a whole lot of super technical, flat fishing here, or, we do a little bit of sight fishing and that kind of stuff for redfish, but man, that Gulp, it seems to really work well here. The color, sometimes the color doesn't make any difference at all, and neither does the shape or the action of the lure. So, I've caught plenty of redfish on half of a Gulp shrimp, that they can't even tell what it is probably, but the scent is there. And I think that makes a big difference over here. Tyler,
you and I are brothers in that, buddy. I tell you, I fish Gulp for flounder, and right now our flounder really haven't started yet. I was saying earlier, I went through a bottle of, how you buy those bottle of 20 swimming mullet? Yep. I went through a bottle of them. I've got 2 left, and I've caught 1 14-inch flounder because our puffers and our toadfish are still so bad, but once they thin out a little bit, once that water temperature drops just a hair, I don't care if I ever catch another finger mullet. You give me a small spinner bait with a 3-inch swimming mullet, and I'm death on flounder, buddy.
Yep, that's the same kind of thing we got going on here. I'm just a Gulp fisherman. That's what I'll put something else in the boat just to have. Like you said, if the puffer fish or the pinfish get real bad, they eat your Gulps up so bad you can't hardly fish with them. But I'm a scent guy, I think.
I want you to try those Fish Bites Fight Club, too. Those are awfully good. In fact, I'm 67 years old, and I caught the biggest sea bass I've ever caught in my life last year fishing a Fish Bites Fight Club on a jig head. It was 4.34, and that's pretty good sea bass, Tyler.
Heck yeah, that's a big one.
Yep. I thought that was a fine one.
I'll definitely look into those.
Give them a shot. Cap, we appreciate it so much. I look forward to talking with you next week.
All right, man. We'll see. I'll be here.
All right, keep your head down. Don't let those storms get you.
I won't. We'll be all right.
Our thanks to Tyler Massey for a great Panhandle report. In fact, our thanks to all of our action spotters, and most especially our thanks to you. We sure hope you enjoyed listening to tonight's broadcast. We made a trip all the way around the state on the East Coast, where it looks like we're still going to have enough wind to kind of shut it down for a few days from these passing storms. Ocean's getting pretty big, but the fishing's been good. The mahi fishing in particular has been good as these east winds have pushed them a little bit closer to shore. If you get down around the Keys area, they're feeling a little bit of effect of those storms passing by. Nick Stanczyk's back on another streak with swordfish. He's doing well, and juvenile tarpon headlined the report for the southwest area. Both Steve Dahl and Greg Stamper said they're doing quite well on them. Ray Markham's been having a hard time getting on the water because of the thunderstorms, like a lot of us, but said the trout bite is excellent. One thing is certain from the storm activity we're having, it is shaking the water up. It's going to be changing weekly now, folks. The dog days of summer are coming to an end. We're headed for fall, and we'll be back next week to talk about it all. Each and every week is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. By Nosara, Paradise Fishing, your dream vacation. And by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat, spay, and offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com. I'm Captain Rick Riles, and until next week, I'll see you on the rip.